Good morning, Grade 8. In this video, we will check the exercises concerning gravity and friction in the workbook. So open your workbooks, page 12, 13, 14, and 15. The first exercise. We have to model forces on an object, change the lines into arrows, and label them by push or pull. The answer to this question is on page 45. As you can see, if I'm pushing the object, the arrow should be oriented towards the object, and if I'm pulling the object, it should be oriented as shown in the figure. The second exercise. Contrast types of forces and give an example of each. The answer to these questions are found on page 45 and 46. Contact force. The description. It's a push or a pull on one object by another that is touching it. Example. You can answer anything. This is a free answer. One example is an athlete hitting a ball with a bat. Non-contact force. The force one object can apply to another without touching it. And an example could be a pencil falling on the floor, which is here the effect of gravity. Now, draw arrows to represent the described forces. The answers are on page 46. So, a slight downward force on the object, as you can see, the arrow is going down, and a greater upward force than the downward force illustrated above. So you have to draw a longer arrow, because if you remember, we used to say that the length of the arrow represents the magnitude of the force. So if the force is greater, the arrow should be longer, and it's going upward. Distinguish mass and gravity. The answer is on page 47. Mass, it's the amount of matter in an object, whereas gravity is the attractive force between all objects that have mass. Now, the question is, cite the law of universal gravitation. And the answer is on page 47. All objects are attracted to each other by gravitational force. This is the law of universal gravitation. Now, illustrate the relationship between gravitational force and mass. Draw arrows in the diagrams to indicate the size and the direction of the attractive force of each object. As we said in the lesson, that gravity is affected by many factors. One of them is mass, the other one is distance. So in this case, we have to illustrate the effect of mass on gravity. The answer is on page 47. As you can see in the first example, I have two small balls, so the attraction between them is small. When the balls are bigger, the attraction is going to be bigger. And in the end, objects with different masses, I will have a force of gravity between the two other forces. As you can see, it's bigger than the first one, it's smaller than the second one. Now, describe the relationship between gravitational force and distance as shown in the diagram. The answer is on page 47. As you can see, the gravitational force between the objects decreases as the distance between the objects increases. So if the two objects are close, the gravitational force is big. If they are far, the gravitational force will decrease. Now, assess the information about gravity, mass, and weight. Read each statement. If it's true, write T in the center column. If it's false, write F in the center column and replace the underlined words to make the statement true. The answers are found on page 48. the first statement. Mass is a gravitational force exerted by an object. This is false because we're not talking about mass here. Mass is the amount of matter, as we said earlier. This is weight. Weight is a gravitational force exerted on an object and not by an object. The second statement. An object's weight is proportional to its mass. This is true because weight equals to mass times g. This is why this is true. 3. Mass is measured in newtons. This is false because mass is not a force. Mass is the amount of matter in an object. It will be measured in kilograms, whereas a force as weight would be measured in Newton. If an object has twice the size of another object, it has half the weight. This is false because if an object has twice the mass of another object, it has twice the weight. It's proportional, as we said. An object's mass decreases the farther it gets from Earth's surface. This is false, but there's a mistake in the typing. So an object's weight decreases the farther it gets from Earth's surface. Now, friction. Complete the concept map about friction. The answers are found on page 49. The definition: it's a force that resists the motion of two surfaces that are touching. And I have 3 types of friction. The first one is static friction, sliding friction, and fluid friction. The static friction is given. The sliding friction, it opposes motion of objects sliding past each other. And the fluid friction is the last one. Cite 2 reasons friction occurs between surfaces. The answers are found on page 50. Microscopic dips and bumps on one surface catch on those of another surface when they slide past each other. And the second reason would be attraction between electrical charges and surface particles slows their sliding past each other. Explain how lubricants reduce friction. The answer to this question is found on page 50. Lubricants decrease friction by slightly separating surfaces as they slide past each other. This is how they reduce friction. Describe how the forces of gravity and friction affect the motion that occurs as you write on this page. So here you can have a free answer. One of the sample answers would be: gravity pulls my science notebook to the surface of the desk. Friction keeps the book stationary on the desk unless I push the book with enough force to overcome static friction. Friction between my pencil and the page also determines how much force I must apply to the pencil to slide it along the page to write. You can use your own words as long as they are scientific and not an essay. Thank you very much.